Welcome to Grounding Ascension, where we explore the process of activating and integrating our I Am presence. I am your host, Celeste Glus. Aloha and welcome to the very first episode of Grounding Ascension. I'm so freaking excited to be doing this. It's been quite a long time coming. I knew that I would have to find a new platform to share all of this wealth of information and wisdom and experiences that I have been through and continue to experience on a day-to-day basis. And this seems to be the right one. So I'm going to be speaking all about my spiritual awakening, the ascension process, but most importantly, what it means to align with our truth and to awaken this part of ourselves that we have forgotten. I have become really passionate through the years about genuinely reawakening to the truth that we are. And I believe that this is the reason why so many of us are waking up at this time. We're being called to do something very different. And part of that is to genuinely believe that there is a new path unfolding. And it's not unfolding outside of us, it's unfolding within. And the more of us that have the courage and the strength to take the steps that we are given, then we will see the new earth created. We will see and be the change that we are looking so desperately for. And that's what this podcast is about. I will be talking about holistic living. I will be speaking to amazing souls who have been on this journey and live in so many different places of the world and speak so many different languages, and yet we walk the same path. The shamans, the mystics, the seers, the healers, the scientists, the quantum physicists, we are all doing our role in this new path, in creating this new earth. I genuinely believe that and I see that, and I'll be bringing all of that together on this podcast. So basically, a little background about myself, and the easiest way to put it in the most practical sense, believe it or not, is that I am a cosmic soul. It just is what it is. And so many of us are awakening to our cosmic aspects. And so the largest hurdle for me has been how to integrate this vast cosmic experience and understanding into this physical realm. And this is why I wrote my book, I Am Lemuria, waking up to my lineage of the Mu civilization. But not only that, we are so much more than what we can even remember. And that's what this podcast is going to be speaking about. My awakening technically began in 2011 with a total car crash. I fell asleep at the wheel and I didn't know where I was when I woke up. And that was just the first of so many synchronistic experiences that I never realized how they would come together until recently. It's been about 8 years looking back and being able to connect all of the dots. And I think that's one of the hardest things for us, especially living in this consumer-driven, satisfaction-pleasing Western culture, is that we want to know all of the things in this now moment. And the entire process of awakening and ascension and remembering our magic actually asks us to slow down and to fully embrace the present moment. And I feel that's a practice that's becoming harder and harder to realize and to live with every day that passes. So from hindsight, I am able to put so many of my experiences together, which I look forward to sharing with you guys. Now, there is definitely a mass awakening happening. Obviously, right now it is August of 2020. We are literally in the year of clarity, of seeing clearly. But we see clearly, as I just mentioned, through hindsight. And so it's going to be very interesting how this year continues to unfold. But I can definitely say that what I see in the inner world is a completely new infrastructure that is being grounded right now in our reality. And that's what we're living. And transformation calls for strength and courage. It's not easy. And that's what this podcast is going to be about. Integrating, activating, aligning through these transformative times. I wanted to share with you guys 3 paths that this journey has taken me on. And honestly, I wouldn't have been able to really summarize this without having lived it for so many years. So looking back, the first path that I was taking on was meditative journeying. Now, I had no idea what meditation was, and much less meditative journeying. But my experience began by my body simply just shutting down and asking me to navigate the inner world. And for many of us, we don't really have an understanding of what the inner world even means. I definitely didn't up until recently, having been able to write my experiences down and kind of make them more logical. But the inner world is this vast universe that exists inside of us. Just as we can look out into the world and be bombarded with so much information, the same thing can happen when we close our eyes and we tune within. Now, I think that some people have an easier opening to this path, and some people find it a little more difficult, but I do believe that it's possible for everyone to access it. And so this path of meditative journeying is very common to the mystics, the seers, the shamans, the healers, so many of the foundational pieces of our society that has been lost. And as we, the seers, the mystics, the healers, the shamans, and all of those that perhaps we don't even have a name for because our language is so cut off and limited, if we could say that. For those of us that are being asked to take this meditative journey within, it unfolds a completely different reality and dimension that only recently have I been able to really validate and understand for myself and make a grounded interpretation of. And so this path requires a lot of discipline and a lot of discernment and a lot of techniques to be able to ground and also to integrate what we find in these inner worlds so that we can bring them out into the external, because all of us, every single one of us, no matter what we're experiencing, no matter what our spiritual awakening looks like, what our ascension process looks like, we are living very unique circumstances, which at some point will ask us to integrate it into our lives, into our daily lives. And when we cannot do that, which has been much of my story, my inability to integrate and align to what my higher self or the path unfolding was asking me to do. When we are unable to do that is when we become disintegrated, when we begin to live chaos and we begin to feel ungrounded. And so one of my biggest intentions with this podcast is to provide the tools and the knowledge for those of us that are being asked to take this path of going within to be able to merge the worlds of the inner and the outer, because that's really what we're here to do. The other path that I have been deeply initiated into is the path of divine feminine and divine masculine. So the wisdom teachings of this path, the path of the rose, the path of really looking at what has happened on the world stage and genuinely asking ourselves, is this what I want to continue living? Is this what I stand for? Is this what I came here to do and to grow upon? And much of this journey has been, again, on the inner plane, what I have been shown through meditation, through experiences of daily life. And other parts of this wisdom have come from beautiful teachers that I have found upon my path. The path of divine union and being in partnership has also been a huge part of the teachings of the feminine and masculine mysteries. And I say mysteries because a lot of this knowledge has been inverted and used against us through religion and through politics and through media. And the reason why mysteries have existed through time was because some part of the population was not necessarily ready to receive this information. And so some of us are taken through the inner plane or through teachers or through mentorships to be able to receive these teachings. And there's a purpose for them to sort of stay in their mysterious ways, because it's more about living and being these teachings than it is about actually teaching them and sharing them with others. Because what I have found is that the divine feminine asks us to be and to live in the expression of these teachings. And that's been my journey with her, with the masculine, and with integrating and coming into the I am presence, the holy trinity within. And the last one, the last path, is reclaiming our spiritual gifts and our sovereignty. And so much of my path has been about this, about having the courage and the strength to really stand in my own center and reclaim the importance of bringing this magic back out into the world. And not only bringing it, but genuinely just being this magic. There is a sense in the world that we just have a physical experience. And what happened to me was that I fell into believing that life was only physical. And through the awakening process, I realized there are vast amount of universes within, waiting to be integrated. And the integration happens through this physical body. And that process requires us, there is no other way. It requires us to reclaim our gifts and to be in spiritual sovereignty, to no longer ask for someone else's validity and acceptance. And that's been quite a journey for me, especially awakening to Lemuria, to the ancient civilization of Mu, which, well, I can go on and on about that, but we won't do that right now. But basically, allowing ourselves to open up to the magic that we knew was possible when we were children. And when we can do that for ourselves, we begin to activate that within our lives, within our hearts. And that I have found to be one of the most powerful things that can happen on this path of spiritual awakening and ascension. So as we reclaim our multidimensional self and we reclaim our gifts, we get to see, like really genuinely see, opening our true vision and see past the distortion that has been created for so long on this planet. We get to see past the inversion of the reality that has been given to us. And we get to take responsibility in being the creators of the new. And I think that's one of the things that I'm most excited about, getting to this point and realizing I get to create, I get to choose. I not only do I get to, but I also have the responsibility, because no one around me is going to take on my gifts, my role. And we all have to come to that understanding and that knowing. And when we do, it is so divine, because we naturally activate that with others around us. And it's genuinely divine. And we do this by remembering and aligning, remembering all that we are, aligning to our truth, moving past all of the BS, all of the distortions, and truly believing that we can activate and awaken a much higher human potential, this multidimensional DNA that so many of us are experiencing, these crystalline realities that are making themselves seen in this world right now, these unmistakable, synchronistic, magical experiences that so many of us are having are becoming more and more and more common. And that's what we're here to do, to live these things more and more often until they just simply become status quo. And so that's what this podcast is going to be about, the merging of the inner and the outer, the experiences of spiritually awakening, the process of integrating, of activating, of aligning to our true human potential, and to seeing these quantum levels of DNA light up our world, our reality, our mental and behavioral patterns, and our daily experiences. And so, to wrap it up, this is basically about the journey of coming back to our magic, integrating our wholeness, and activating our multidimensional I am presence. And I'd like to leave you with a little quote that I wrote shortly before sitting down with you. It says, "We are all that we are, and we can awaken to it. And when we do, all else will fall by the wayside. Magic will seep out of our pores. When we close our eyes, we will simply know. When we walk the streets, we will simply be. When we speak our truth, people will listen. We are here to reclaim our magic. And this is a story about it actually happening." Blessings, and see you next time.